Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back in time. Way back. We're heading to medieval Europe, but not to a battlefield or a king's court. No, we're going somewhere much quieter, much more confined. We're stepping into a convent, a place of stone, silence, and secrets. It's a world where a vow could be your salvation or your tune, and just a little heads up, your modern ideas about personal freedom and, let's be honest, mates be honest, basic hygiene, might mean you wouldn't last a week. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel find other night owls like us. And while you're at it, please let me know in the comments what city you're in, and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The heavy oak door groans shut behind you, and the sound echoes down the long, stone corridor before being swallowed by an unnerving silence. Thud, that's it. That's the sound of your old world ending. The sliver of bright, chaotic street life you just left behind is gone, sealed away by 3 inches of solid wooden and iron bolt the size of your forearm. The air inside is instantly different. It's cool, thick with the scent of damped stone, melting beeswax, and something faintly herbal, like dried lavender mixed with old books. For a moment you just stand there, your traveling cloak feeling suddenly garish and out of place. This is it, your new home, your sanctuary. You came here seeking peace, or so you told everyone. And yourself. Peace from a world that had too few options for a woman of your station without a suitable marriage proposal. Your father called it your sacred calling. You knew it was a convenient solution. He even paid a handsome dowry to the convent, a gift to God that ensured you'd be fed and housed for the rest of your life. Historians, by the way, still argue about this. For every woman who genuinely sought a deep spiritual connection, how many were simply deposited here, right place for the unmarriageable, the inconvenient, the overly educated daughters, but a choice made from a very, very short list. A woman with a face like a carved saint, all sharp angles and serene authority, leads you away. She is the abbess, the mother superior, and her eyes seem to miss nothing. You are led to a small, cold room where your fine wool dress and leather shoes are taken from you. In their place you are given a coarse, heavy woolen habit. It scratches your skin. The rough rope belt feels alien around your waist. You are no longer the person who walked in that door, a blank slate upon which God's will and the convent's rules will be written. The ceremony is the strangest part. It feels less like an initiation and more like a funeral and a wedding rolled into one. You lie prostrate on the cold stone floor of the chapel, a black cloth draped over you, as the other nuns chant the rites for the dead. You are dying to the world, you see. Then you are raised up, reborn. The abbess places a simple metal ring on your finger. It's not silver or gold, just plain heavy iron. This is your wedding band. You are now Sponsor Christi, a bride of Christ. It's a deeply profound theological concept, and a fascinatedly bizarre piece of trivia. You have sworn a vow of chastity, poverty, and obedience. You are married to an eternal, divine husband. Therefore, any earthly intimacy is not just a sin, it's adultery of the highest order. Standing there in the echoing chapel, the scent of incense thick in your throat, you feel a strange calm settle over you. This is a life of purpose, you tell yourself, a life of quiet contemplation, shielded from the plagues, famines, and endless wars of the outside world. The stone walls that felt like a prison just an hour ago now feel like a fortress, protecting you. The silence is no longer unnerving, it's holy. You have traded the messy, unpredictable chaos of life for a predictable, orderly existence. Every minute of your day, from pre-dawn prayers to last light, will be dictated by the tolling of a bell. It's a form of peace, you suppose. A very, very structured peace. You take a deep breath, the cold air filling your lungs, and you accept your new reality. You are God's. Here, inside these walls, you will be safe. The first toll of the bell feels like a physical blow. It's not a gentle chime, it's a deep, resonant bong that seems to vibrate right through the stone floor and up your spine. It's still dark outside, a thick, inky blackness that feels like the middle of the night. Because it is the middle of the night. This is the Matins bell, the first of 7 times a day you will be summoned to prayer. Sleep is a luxury, not a right, and it is portioned out in miserly chunks. You stumble out of your small, hard bed in the dormitory, a long room filled with other sleeping forms, their quiet breathing the only other sound. Your cell, if you can call it that, is just a curtained-off alcove. Privacy is a worldly vanity. You follow the shadowy figures of the other nuns, a river of black and white flowing through the frigid corridors. Your breath plumes in front of your face. The only light comes from a few sputtering tallow candles, casting long dancing shadows that make the stone saints carved into the walls look like they're weeping. The chapel is even colder. There's no stained glass here, no opulent gold leaf. This is a place of austere devotion. The stone benches are hardened and forgiving, designed to discourage comfort. You kneel, the stone biting into your knees even through the thick wool of your habit. The Latin chants begin, a monotonous, hypnotic drone. You don't understand the tone, solemn, ancient, and absolute. This is your new reality, a life governed by bells. The bell for lauds at sunrise, for prime, for tertii, for sext tea, for nun, for vespers at sunset, and finally, for compline before bed. It's a relentless, unyielding rhythm. The bells tell you when to pray, when to eat, when to work, when to study, when to be silent, and when to sleep. It's what historians call the liturgy of the hours, a framework designed to sanctify every moment of the day. The bell doesn't ask, it commands. It slices your day into precise, non-negotiable segments. There is no room for personal whims, no space for spontaneity. Your time is no longer your own, it belongs to God and the abbess in that order. In between the endless prayers there is work. The convent must be self-sufficient. You are assigned to the scriptorium, a room slightly warmer than the rest, where a few precious manuscripts are copied. Your job is not to illuminate the beautiful letters with gold leaf that is reserved for the most senior and talented nuns, but to scrape parchment. You take used sheets of vellum, and with a small, curved knife, you carefully, painstakingly scrape away the old ink so the page can be reused. It's tedious, back-breaking work. Your shoulders ache, and your eyes burn from focusing on the faint traces of old words. These recycled parchments have a name, by the way, a fantastic little piece of trivia, a palimpsest. A document where the old text has been scraped away, but faint traces remain underneath the new. You feel a bit like a palimpsest yourself, your old identity being scraped away to make room for something new. Mealtimes are silent affairs in the refectory. You sit on long wooden benches, eating a pottage of vegetables and grains from a simple wooden bowl. Meat is a rarity, a luxury for feast days or for the sick. While you eat, one nun stands at a lectern, reading aloud from the lives of the saints. You are not to speak, not to make eye contact. You are to eat what you are given, listen to the holy words, and contemplate your own unworthiness. It's a powerful tool for social control. Communal, yet isolating. You are surrounded by dozens of other women, yet you feel completely alone. The strangest rule, the one you struggle with the most, is the great silence. From the end of compline at night until after prime the next morning, no one is permitted to speak. But in the dead of night, when you're lying on your cotton to cough double you rack your body, you have to smother it in your thin blanket. When a nightmare makes you cry out, you bite down on your own hand. The silence is absolute, a heavy blanket over the entire convent. Historians are still debating the psychological effects of such prolonged, enforced silence. Did it lead to a higher state of spiritual awareness, as intended, or did it simply breed a deep, internal world of fantasy and resentment for you? It feels like a pressure cooker. All the unsaid words, the tiny frustrations, the lingering loneliness, just build and build inside you with no release. The bells keep tolling, the work never ends, and the silence just gets louder. The walls of a convent are designed to keep the world out, but they're not a way of seeping in through the cracks, sometimes in the form of a delivery card, a visiting priest, or, in your case, a mason. HES here to repair a section of the cloister wall that crumbled during the winter storms. He is a disruption, a splash of loud, earthy color in your monochrome world. He whistles while he works, a cheerful, tuneless sound that feels like a minor blasphemy in the sacred quiet. His arms are thick with muscle, dusted with stone and sweat. He smells of sun and dirt and something else, something alive and unfamiliar. You aren't supposed to walk by with your eyes downcast, a humble servant of God focused only on your holy tasks. But you do look. Just quick, stolen glances at first. You notice the way the sun catches the blonde hairs on his forearms, the way his calloused hands handle the heavy stones with a surprising gentleness. He is the first man you've seen up close old enough to be your grandfather. He is a novelty, a dangerous novelty. The interactions are small, almost non-existent. A shared moment of eye contact as you carry a basket of laundered altar cloths through the courtyard. His work stops for a second. His eyes are a startling blue. He gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. You feel a jolt, a hot flush that rises from your chest to your cheeks, and you quickly look down, your heart hammering against your ribs. You hurry away, your mind a whirlwind of guilt and a strange, thrilling new feeling. During the great silence, you can't concentrate on your prayers. The droning Latin is just a background noise to the memory of that shared glance. One afternoon, you are sent to draw water from the well in the kitchen garden. He is there, washing the water from his tools. He sees you struggling with the heavy wooden bucket. "Allow me, sister," he says, his voice a low rumble. It's the first time he has spoken to you directly. You freeze, unsure of the rules. Are you allowed to speak to him? The rules are for men of the world. But he is a workman. He read the abbess's request. It's a grey area. Your voice sounding thin and reedy. He effortlessly draws the bucket, the rope creaking, and places it down for you. His hand brushes yours as you both reach for the handle. It's like being struck by lightning. A warm, tingling shock that travels up your entire arm. These moments become your secret, a hidden treasure in the dreary landscape of your life. You start to find reasons to be in the parts of the convent where he is working. A sudden need to weed a patch of herbs near the crumbling wall, an errand to the dovecote that takes you past the cloister. The exchanges are never more than a few words, a shared smile. But in the suffocating silence and rigidity of the convent, they feel like epic poems of romance. He tells you his name is Thomas. He asks you his name is Thomas. You hesitate for a moment, then whisper it. Saying your own name, the one from your past life, feels like a betrayal of your vows. And yet, it feels wonderful. This is a side of convent life that rarely makes it into the official records, but it certainly happened. Historians find clues in confessional manuals and ecclesiastical court records. The church knew this was a risk. They even had a term for its solicitatio, the sin of a confessor soliciting a penitent, which by extension covered these forbidden interactions. But rules can't always govern the human heart. One evening, as dusk settles and the final bell for Vespers is about to ring, he corners you in the shadow of a stone archway. He presses a small, clumsily carved wooden bird into your hand. "For you," he whispers, "so you don't forget the sound of them." His face is so close you can feel the warmth of his breath. The bell begins to toll, a deafening summons. You should throw the bird to the ground and retreat into the safety of your vows. You do none of these things. You close your hand around the small bird, its sharp edges digging into your palm, and in the deepening twilight, you lean in. The world, with all its messiness and sin and life, has not only seeped through the walls, it has found you. The change is subtle at first, a traitorous whisper from your own body. It begins with a weariness that sleep doesn't seem to cure. The pre-dawn bell for matins, once just a jarring annoyance, now feels like an act of physical cruelty. You drag yourself from your cot. A profound exhaustion settled deep in your bones, a fatigue that has nothing to do with scraping parchment or kneeling on cold stone. The other nuns, their faces pale and drawn in the candlelight, look tired too. Life in the convent is hard. Everyone is tired. Then comes the nausea. It hits you one morning during the silent breakfast. The smell of the warm, lumpy pottage, the smell you've tolerated for years, suddenly makes your stomach clench. You press a hand to your mouth, fighting the urge to gag, your eyes watering. Sister Agnes, sitting across from you, gives you a sharp, questioning look. You shake your head slightly, trying to signal it's nothing, just a passing ailment. But it isn't. The nausea becomes a regular, unwelcome guest, ambushing you at random moments. You learn to disguise it to turn a sudden wave of sickness into a bout of pious coughing, your head bowed, as if in deep prayer. Your body, once a predictable vessel for prayer and work, is becoming a foreign country with strange new laws. Your breasts are tender, aching under the coarse fabric of your habit. Your sense of smell, once dulled by the perpetual scent of waxened old stone, is now acutely, painfully sharp. The faint whiff of fish being prepared for the abscessed Abel on a Friday sends you reeling. You start to dread mealtimes, not just for the silence, but for the olfactory assault. Fear, a cold and slithering serpent, begins to coil in the pit of your stomach. You know these signs. You may have sworn a vow of chastity, but you didn't grow up in a vacuum. You saw it in cousins, in village girls. You know what this means. The secret you carry is a physical weight. It's there when you kneel in the chapel, a dull ache in your lower back. It's there when you try to cinch the rope belt around your waist, a new fullness that the heavy wool habit can only hide for so long. The rhythm of your life, once governed by bells, is now governed by this terrifying, internal clock. You find yourself counting weeks, then months, a secret, desperate arithmetic. Thomas the Mason is long gone. His whistling has been replaced by the familiar, oppressive silence. He left you with a carved burden to catastrophe. This was the ultimate nightmare scenario for a monastic community. The preservation of chastity was paramount. Historians point out that a pregnant nun wasn't just a personal failure, she was a theological crisis. Her body, pledged to God, had been desecrated. She had broken a sacred contract, and in doing so she threatened the spiritual integrity of the entire convent. The shame was communal. You try to pray. You kneel for hours in the dark, frigid chapel, long after the other nuns have gone to bed. You beg for a miracle. You beg for this to be a phantom, a punishment from God for your thoughts alone, a trial to be endured, that it be a sickness, a dropsy, anything but this. You pray with a desperation you have never known. The words are frantic, silent scream in your mind, but your prayers feel like they are hitting a stone ceiling and falling back down on you unanswered. The little wooden bird Thomas gave you is hidden in the straw of your mattress. Sometimes in the dead of night, you take it out. You run your thumb over its rough surface. It is the only proof that he was real, that those stolen moments of warmth and life actually happened. The bird feels impossibly small in your hand. The secret it represents feels impossibly, terrifyingly large. The walls of the convent, once your fortress, are closing in with a certainty that chills you to your very soul, that it is only a matter of time before they find you out. The convent is a small world, and in a small world, there are no real secrets. The walls don't just have ears, they have eyes. Dozens of them. They are the eyes of Sister Elspeth, whose piety is matched and gossip. They are the eyes of Sister Catherine, the infirmarian, who watches everyone with a clinical, assessing gaze. Most of all, they are the eyes of the abbess, a woman who seems to see right through the heavy wool of your habit and into the frantic, terrified chambers of your heart. It starts with the whispers. You catch them in the laundry, in the garden, in the moments you pass other nuns in the cloister. The conversations stop abruptly when you approach. The smiles become tight, the eyes cold and knowing. They don't look at your face anymore, their gazes flicker down, for just a fraction of a second, to your belly. The space beneath your robe belt, once a source of private anxiety, is now a subject of public speculation. The heavy, forgiving folds of your habit can no longer conceal the gentle, but undeniable, swell of your abdomen. Sister Catherine, the infirmarian, stops you one day in the corridor. You look pale, child, she says, her voice devoid of any real warmth. Your face is puffy. Are you retaining water? It's not a question of concern. It's an accusation disguised as a diagnosis. She reaches out and places a dry, cool hand on your forehead. No fever, she murmurs, her eyes narrowing. Perhaps you need a tonic, a purgative, to cleanse the system. She is offering you a chance to cleanse yourself of this problem, a veiled reference to the abortifacient herbs that were a part of medieval folk medicine. A fascinating and grim bit of trivia: many of these women's herbs, like penurial or tansy, were known to be dangerous, even deadly, in the doses required. Historians are still piecing together how widespread this tacit knowledge was within female monastic communities. Was it a forbidden art, passed down in whispers? You stammer a refusal, claiming you are fine, just tired. But the encounter leaves you trembling. They know, or at least they suspect, and their suspicion is a poison that seeps into every corner of your existence. Every meal becomes a test. You force down the food, trying to appear normal, even as your stomach churns. You know they are watching, noting every bite you can't finish, every time you grow pale. You can't focus on scraping the old words from the parchment. Your own story, the one unfolding in terror inside your body, is too loud. The ultimate betrayal comes from your own body during a Vesper service. As the choir of nuns' voices rises in a soaring Gregorian chant, you feel a faint, fluttery movement inside you. It's not a cramp, not a gas bubble. It's something else, a quickening. The first undeniable stirrings of life. It should be a moment of wonder, but for you, it is a death sentence. Your breath catches in a sob. You clap a hand over your mouth, but it's too late. A sharp gasp of despair in the middle of the holy chant cuts through the air. The singing falters for a beat. Every head turns towards you. In the front pew, the abbess slowly turns, her face an unreadable mask of stone. Her eyes lock onto yours, and in that moment, you know that all speculation is over. That night, you don't go to the dormitory. You hide in the darkest corner of the chapel, huddled at the feet of a stone saint, shivering with cold and fear. The great silence descends, but tonight it offers no peace, only a terrifying amplification of your own panic thoughts. You are a walking, breathing scandal. You are the ultimate failure of the system, a living symbol of sin in a place dedicated to purity. You press your hands against your belly, feeling that faint, ghostly flutter again. It is no longer just your secret. It is a living, moving truth that cannot be denied or hidden. The walls, once your protectors, now feel like the stones of a tomb, waiting patiently to claim you. And the eyes, the dozens of knowing, judging eyes, are everywhere. The summons comes the next morning, not by a bell, but by a chillingly personal messenger. Two senior nuns, grim-faced and silent, appear at your side as you leave the chapel after matins. They don't speak your name. They don't need to. One gestures with her head towards a heavy oak door you have only ever seen closed, the door to the abbess's private study. This is not a place for casual conversation. Your legs feel like they're filled with wets, and as you walk, the corridor, usually just a familiar stone passage, seems to stretch into an impossible length. The two nuns flank you, not touching you, but their presence is a cage. They are your honor guard or your prison escort. You can't tell the difference. They open the door and usher you inside, closing it firmly behind you. The click of the latch is deafening. The room is surprisingly stark. A simple wooden desk, a crucifix on the wall, a single high window letting in a sliver of grey morning light. And the abbess. She is seated behind the desk, her hands steep-led in front of her. Her face, which you once thought of as serene, now looks like it's carved from ice. She doesn't invite you to sit. You stand before her on the cold stone floor, your head bowed, your hands twisted in the sleeves of your habit. She is letting you stew in it, letting your own guilt and fear do the work for her. "Look at me," she says finally. Her voice is not loud, but it cuts through the silence like a shard of glass. You force yourself to lift your head to meet her gaze. Her eyes are dark and piercing, and they hold no trace of pity. "You have broken your most sacred vows," she states. "It is not a question. You have defiled this holy house. You have betrayed your husband, our Lord Jesus Christ." Each accusation is a hammer blow, driving you further into the ground. "Who was he?" she asks, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "The man who aided you in this sacrilege. His name." You remain silent, your eyes fixed on the crucifix on the wall behind her. The memory of Thomas' face, his smile, the feel of his hand in yours, it's the only warmth you have left. To give them his name would be to extinguish it, to hand him over to a justice that you know will be swift and brutal. You know the fate of men who trespassed on the church's property. It wouldn't be a quiet affair like yours. There would be a public trial, humiliation, and a painful, ugly end. Silence will not protect you, the abbess says, her voice rising slightly. Nor will it protect him. The world outside these walls has its own laws, and the bishop has a long reach, but the sin committed within these walls, that is my domain. This is a key point that historians often emphasize: the immense power wielded by an abbess. Within her convent, her authority was nearly absolute. She was the landlord, the judge, and the spiritual leader, while technically under the authority of the local bishop. In the day-to-day running of the convent, her word was law. She could order penance, fasting, solitary confinement, and in some cases much, much worse. She leans forward, her eyes boring into you. You are a vessel of corruption, a garden that was meant for God, now overrun with weeds of the flesh. Your body is a walking testament to your sin, and it puts us all to shame. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't have to. The cold, venomous precision of her words is more terrifying than any shouting. She is framing your pregnancy not as a personal failing, but as a spiritual infection that threatens the entire community. This is how they justified the most extreme punishments. It wasn't about cruelty, they would argue. It would argue it was about spiritual hygiene, about cutting out a cancer to save the whole body. A fascinating and chilling tidbit is that the concept of the dead to the world ceremony you underwent upon entering the convent had a dark legal flip side. In the eyes of canon law, you were already legally dead. Your worldly rights were extinguished. This gave the monastic authorities a terrifying amount of control over your physical existence. You stand there, mute and trembling, as she pronounces her judgment. She doesn't tell you the specifics of your punishment yet. She just looks at you with a mixture of disgust and cold fury. You have made your choice, she says, her voice flat. You chose the fleeting pleasures of the flesh over an eternity of grace. Now you will bear the consequences. She rings a small bell on her desk, and the two nuns re-enter the room. The trial is over. The verdict is guilty. The sentence is yet to be revealed, but you can see it to be revealed, but you can see it in the chilling finality of the abbess's eyes. His name, the abbess repeats, her voice like the scraping of stone on stone. Give us his name. The question hangs in the cold air of the study, an anvil question, meant to crush your resolve. You stand there alone, silent figure, the weight of their judgment pressing down on you. Beside the abbess now stands a priest, the convent's confessor, his face a mask of stern piety. He has been summoned to add the weight of his office to the interrogation. He is the one who is supposed to offer God's forgiveness. But looking at his hard-set jaw, you know there is no forgiveness here, only a demand for information. You think of Thomas. You picture his easy smile, the sawdust in his hair, the clumsy wooden bird he carved for you. What would they do to him? The church had its own courts, its own prisons. His crime wasn't just fathering a child out of wedlock, he was desecrating holy ground, defiling a bride of Christ. The punishment would be public and brutal, designed to be a deterrent to any other man who might dare to look upon a nun with anything other than reverence. He would be dragged before a bishop's court, branded, flogged, maybe worse. His life would be ruined, his reputation destroyed, all for a few stolen moments in a shadowed archway. Your silence is your only weapon, your only act of defiance. It is also your last gift to him. You keep your eyes on the floor and shake your head, a small, almost imperceptible movement. The confessor steps forward. My child, he begins, his voice slick with a practiced tone of spiritual concern. Do not compound your sin with the sin of obstinacy. This man is a wolf who has preyed upon the flock. To shield him is to become complicit in his crime. Then you may begin the long road to penance. The Lord's mercy is infinite, but it must be earned. It's a classic interrogation tactic, the false offer of leniency. The suggestion that your cooperation might somehow lessen your own punishment. But you see the lie in his eyes. Your fate, you realize, was sealed the moment the abbess laid eyes on your swelling belly. This isn't about him anymore. This is entirely about you. You look up, not at the priest, but at the abyss. The sin is mine alone, you whisper, your voice hoarse. It's the first thing you've said. The words hang in the air, a quiet, desperate attempt to claim ownership of your fate, to build a wall around the memory of Thomas. The abbess lets out a short, sharp breath, a sound of contemptuous disbelief. Foolish girl. Do you think we don't know he came to repair the cloister wall? A mason. We have his name from the bursar's records. Thomas of Eldersfield. Your blood runs cold. A wave of nausea and dread washes over you. They knew all along. The questions, the interrogation, it was all a test of your loyalty. A test you have just failed. A small, grim smile plays on the abbess's lips. But you need not worry about him, she says, her voice dripping with a cruel irony. He left the district weeks ago, gone to work on some distant cathedral, we are told. He is beyond our reach. The world of men will deal with men. This is a chilling and historically resonant point. While the man might face ecclesiastical or civil punishment if caught, the woman, especially a nun, was often seen as the primary transgressor, the gateway of the sin. Her body was the scene of the crime. Historians debate how often the male party was even pursued. In a world where a woman's testimony was worth less than a man's, it was far easier to contain the scandal by dealing sorely and severely with the woman left behind. The guilt was hers to bear, and the punishment was hers to endure, alone. You feel a strange mixture of terror and relief. He is safe. The knowledge is a tiny, flickering candle in the vast darkness of your despair. He got away. He is out there, in the world of sun and noise and life, while you are here, in this cold, silent room, facing the consequences. The Convent, the partner in your crime, is a ghost. He exists only in their records and in your memory. He will not stand beside you. He will not share your fate. The full weight of the convent's fury, of the shame and their piety, is focused like a burning glass entirely on you. The priest and the abbess exchange a look. It's a look of grim understanding. The interrogation is over. They have what they wanted, not a name but a confirmation of your unrepentant spirit. You have protected your lover over your holy sisters, your earthly attachment over your divine vows. In their eyes, this seals your damnation. The judgment is not delivered with fire and brimstone. It's delivered in a low, measured tone by the abbess back in her study. The confessor has gone. It's just you and her again. The grey morning light is shifted, now falling across a dusty tome on a side table. It's a book of canon law, its leather cover cracked with age, a book of rules for a life you have failed to live. There are punishments for what you have done. The abbess begins, her voice as cold and flat as a winter pond. Fasting. Scourging. Years of silent penance in a solitary cell. She lists them off, each one a casual horror. You have seen nuns subjected to these punishments for lesser infractions, for speaking out of turn, for possessing a personal item, for a moment of pride. You have seen the raw welts on a sister's back after a disciplinary session. You have seen the vacant look in the eyes of a nun released from a week of darkness and silence. You brace yourself for the same. But your sin is greater, she continues, her eyes fixed on you. It is a sin of the flesh, a sin that continues to grow within you. A constant, living reminder of your betrayal. A normal penance will not suffice. The cancer must be excised. Not just from our house, but from the memory of the world. She pauses, letting the words sink in. What does she mean? How can you be excised from memory? Then she says the word. A word that sounds ancient and terrible. Immurement. It falls into the silence of the room, heavy and final. You don't know the word's precise definition, but you understand its terrifying implication from her tone. It sounds like stoned. It is a mercy, she says, and the lie is so profound it's almost breathtaking. A stone mercy. We will not spill your blood. We would only bring forth your child of sin and perpetuate your shame. Instead, we will give you a permanent cell. A final retreat. A place where you can contemplate your sins for the remainder of your days undisturbed. She makes it sound like a spiritual opportunity, a final, intense form of monastic retreat, but her eyes tell a different story. They are the eyes of an executioner. This is the heart of the legend, the part that has fascinated and horrified people for centuries. Vade in pacem, go in peace. That was the supposed ecclesiastical phrase for this sentence. It was a life sentence to a space the size of a body, a vertical grave. Historians are sharply divided on this. Is it fact or folklore? There is very little direct, written evidence of this specific punishment being officially sanctioned and carried out. The Church was, if nothing else, an institution of meticulous record keepers. The absence of official orders for immurement is a powerful argument against it. But the stories persist. They are found in folklore, in anti-Catholic propaganda from the Reformation era, and most chillingly, in the occasional archaeological discovery. The abbess explains it to you, her voice calm and clinical. A niche will be prepared in the wall, a space just large enough for you to stand. You will be given a small amount of food and water, a final gesture of charity. And then the masons, not an outsider this time, but trusted lay brothers sworn to secrecy, will wall you in. Brick by brick, you will be sealed away, she says, a living stone in the foundation of this holy house. Your tomb will become a part of the convent itself, a silent, eternal warning to any who might be tempted to follow your path. You stand there, a roaring sound filling your ears. The room seems to tilt. This is a madness, a story to frighten children. It cannot be real, but the look on her face is one of absolute, unwavering conviction. She believes this is justice. She believes this is the will of God. It's a punishment of terrifying genius. It's secret. There's no public execution to cause a scandal. It's clean. No blood is spilled by their hands. And it's symbolic. The walls that were meant to protect your chastity will now become your tomb. Your body, which you swore to God, will decay inside the very house of God. You want to scream, to fall to your knees and beg. But you are frozen. Your mind can't process the reality of it. To be walled up, to be left in the dark to what starve suffocated to death so slow, so lonely, so horrific, it's beyond comprehension. The abbess rises from her chair. The audience is over. You will be given tonight to make your peace with God, she says. At sunrise the work will be done. The stern mercy has been offered. The two grim-faced nuns lead you not to the dormitory, but to a small, windowless cell in a convent you've never seen before. It's a punishment cell, you realize. The air is stale and damp, and the only furniture is a single wooden plank for a bed. The door, a heavy slab of oak, has a small, grated Judas window set in it. They shove you inside and the bolt slams home. You are alone, but you press a hand to your belly. No, not alone. This is your last night on earth. The thought is so absurd, so monumental, that your mind refuses to grasp it. It feels like a dream, a terrible nightmare from which you will surely wake. You will wake up, and the matins bell will ring, and you will shuffle to the chapel like always. But the silence from beyond the door is absolute, and the finality of the bolt is undeniable. This is real. You spend the first hour pacing the tiny cell, a caged animal. 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. The rough stone walls scrape your knuckles. You beat on the door, your fists raw, bruised, screaming until your throat is hoarse. You scream for help, for mercy, for the abbess, for your mother, for God. But the only answer is the echo of your own voice in the confined space. The convent has swallowed you whole. Its stone body is digesting you. As exhaustion sets in, you slump onto the hard plank bed. The terror begins to recede, replaced by a strange, hollow clarity. Your life, the one you lived before these walls, flickers through your mind. You remember the smell of rain on a dusty road, the taste of a wild strawberry picked from a field, the warmth of your mother's hand. These small, simple memories are now the most precious things you own. They feel more real than the stone and silence surrounding you. You think about your sisters in the dormitory. Right now they are lying on their cots, perhaps whispering about you. Do they know what is to happen? Some of them, the senior ones, the abbess as confidantes, they must know. Are they horrified, or do they feel a grim sense of satisfaction? Do they believe this is justice, the idea that women you have prayed with, eaten with, and worked alongside for years could be complicit in this is a unique kind of pain? A fascinating point of historical debate is the extent of communal knowledge in such cases. If immurements did happen, were they truly secret, or were they a kind of open secret, an unspoken threat that hung over the entire community, enforced by collective silence and fear? The latter seems more psychologically plausible. Your punishment isn't just for you, it's a message to everyone else. As the night deepens, you find yourself thinking less about the past and more about the immediate future. The mechanics of it. How long will it take for the masons to build the wall? Will they say anything to you? Will they look you in the eye? How long will the air last? Will you die of suffocation before thirst, or thirst before starvation? Your mind, in a desperate attempt to gain some control, latches onto these grotesque practicalities. You touch the small wooden bird in your pocket. You had managed to keep it hidden, a tiny piece of a forbidden world. You run your thumb over its rough surface one last time. It is a symbol of the choice that leads you here. Do you regret it in the face of this monstrous end? It seems impossible to regret a moment of warmth, of human connection. You regret the naivety. You regret getting caught. But the act itself, it was a moment of life in a place dedicated to a slow, pious death. The hours crawl by. There are no bells in this part of the convent to mark the time. The only clock is the slowing of your own frantic heartbeat. You do not pray. The God who would permit this is not a God you can speak to now. Instead, you talk to the tiny life inside you. You whisper apologies to it, for the world you couldn't give it, for the darkness you have brought it into. It's a one-sided conversation, a mother's last words to a child who will never be born. Then you hear it. The distant, unmistakable sound of a bolt being drawn. Footsteps in the corridor. It is not yet dawn, but your time is up. The final night has passed. You get to your feet, your body stiff and cold. A strange calm descends upon you. There is no more room for fear. The heavy oak door swings inward, revealing the same to senior nuns from yesterday. Their faces are impassive, set like stone masks. Behind them, a lay brother stands, his head bowed, holding a flickering lantern that casts long, dancing shadows down the corridor. He doesn't look at you. No one does. They are already treating you as if you're a ghost, a thing to be moved from one place to another. They led you out of the punishment cell, your legs unsteady beneath you. The convent is still wrapped in the pre-dawn hush, the great silence still in effect. The only sounds are the soft shuffle of their leather shoes on the stone floor and your own ragged breathing. They don't take you towards the main parts of the convent, the chapel, the refectory, the dormitory. Instead, they lead you down a flight of narrow, winding stone steps you've never seen before. The air grows colder, damper. It smells of earth, of mildew, of things long forgotten. You are heading into the foundations of the building, into the cellars where they store root vegetables for the winter and barrels of ale. The lantern light glints off wet stone and skittering insects that flee from the sudden brightness. This is the convent's underbelly, the dark, hidden spaces that support the holy world above. And then you see it. In a far corner, away from the neatly stacked barrels and bins, is a recess in the thick foundation wall. It's an architectural anomaly, a shallow alcove that serves no purpose. Or rather, it served no purpose until now. It's been prepared. It's been prepared. It's narrow, not much wider than your shoulders, and just deep enough for you to stand in without your face touching the back wall. It is a human-sized hole. The sight of it is so blunt, so brutally real, that the air is forced from your lungs. This is not a metaphor. This is not a spiritual retreat. This is a tomb, waiting for its occupant. Standing beside it are two men you've never seen before. Masons, you assume. They are dressed in simple tunics, their faces smudged with dirt and shadow. They look uneasy, their eyes darting everywhere but at you. A pile of new, reddish-brown bricks sits beside them, along with a wooden bucket of wet mortar and a pair of trowels, the tools of your execution. These men would have been lay brothers or trusted workers from a nearby monastic estate, sworn to absolute secrecy. The church was an expert at this kind of compartmentalized secrecy. These men might not even know the full story. They would be told a penitent nun has chosen a life of seclusion, or some other pious lie. Historians speculate about the psychology of these workers. Did they know what they were really doing? Did they believe the official story? Or did they simply do the job they were paid or ordered to do, averting their eyes and salving their consciences with prayer or ale? One of the nuns gestures towards the niche. "In," she commands, her voice a harsh whisper. For a moment, you are frozen. Your feet feel rooted to the damp earth. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to run, to fight, to do anything but willingly step into that hole. You look at the faces of the nuns, searching for a flicker of doubt, of pity. There is none. There is only the cold, hard certainty of their righteousness. With a final, shuddering breath, you force your legs to move. It's the longest walk of your life, those 10 feet from the center of the cellar to the wall. You turn and place your back against the cold, rough stone of the recess. It's a perfect, horrifying fit. Your shoulders just brush the sides. The space is claustrophobic, immediately oppressive. You are facing out, watching them. You are the audience to your own burial. One of the nuns places a small, coarse loaf of bread and a clay pitcher of water on the floor at your feet. The final charity. A gesture to technically absolve them of the sin of starving you. You are not being starved, you are simply not being fed. The distinction is a masterpiece of moral gymnastics. You look past the nuns, past the masons, to the stone steps you just descended. You fix your eyes on the darkness at the top of the stairs, the darkness that leads back to the world of errant movement and life. You will watch it until you can't anymore. You stand in your tomb, waiting. The first mason picks up a brick. Before the first brick is laid, a figure appears at the top of the cellar steps, descending slowly into the flickering lantern light. It's the priest, the confessor. He carries a small, dark book and a wooden cross. He is here to perform the last rites. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. He is here to commend your soul to God, just moments before he sanctions the slow, deliberate termination of your life. The two masons step back, their heads bowed, grateful for the interruption. The nuns cross themselves. The priest stops a few feet in front of your niche. He doesn't look at you with pity, but with a kind of grim satisfaction, the look of a man completing a distasteful but necessary task, like cleaning a drain. He opens his book and begins to chant in Latin. Libera me, Domini, de morte eterna, in die illa tremendor. Deliver me, O Lord, from eternal death on that dreadful day. It's the Libera me, a responsory from the office of the dead, the Catholic funeral rite. They are praying for your soul as if you were already a corpse laid out for burial. The familiar, sonorous Latin, which once brought you a sense of comfort and continuity in the chapel, now sounds like a curse. Each word is a shovel full of dirt being thrown onto your coffin. The deep, resonant chant echoes in the small cellar, the sound bouncing off the damp stone walls, creating a disorienting, immersive wave of sound. You stand there, pressed against the back of your tomb, and listen to the words of your own funeral. They are declaring you dead to the world, not just legally or metaphorically, as they did when you first took your vows, but physically. This ceremony is for them, not for you. It's a way of sanctifying the act of turning a horrific murder into a holy ritual. It provides a theological framework for what they are about to do, absolving them of the guilt. They are not killing you. They are merely completing the funeral of a soul that died the moment you broke your vow. This ritualistic aspect is a key feature in many accounts of immurement. It wasn't just about walling someone up, it was about doing so within a religious context that justified the act. There's a chilling piece of trivia. Here some folkloric versions of the legend claim that the person being immurated was given a bell. The idea was that they could ring it to signal that they were still alive, and the community would pray for them. When the bell fell silent, they would know the end had come. There's no real evidence for this, but it adds a layer of psychological torment to the story that is almost impossible to contemplate. A bell that measures your own slow demise. The priest sprinkles holy water in your direction. A few cold droplets land on your face and you flinch. It feels like being spat on. He makes the sign of the cross. Requiescat in pace, he intones, rest in peace. He closes his book. The service is over. Your soul has been officially processed and filed away. He turns to the masons. Vade in pacem, he says, his voice low and firm. Go in peace. This is the phrase that gives the legend its name. It's a perversion of a benediction twisted into a command for a living burial. Some historians argue this phrase is a later invention, a piece of Protestant propaganda meant to paint the Catholic Church in the worst possible light. Others believe it could have been a real, coded phrase, its terrible meaning understood only by those present. We'll likely never know for certain. It remains one of those phrases that lives in the grey, murky borderland between history and myth. The priest turns and descends the stairs without a backward glance. His job is done. The two nuns give a curt nod to the masons, a signal to begin. One of the men, the younger one, hesitates for a fraction of a second. His eyes meet yours. In them, you see a flicker of something. Is it fear, pity, guilt? It's there for just a moment. A tiny spark of shared humanity in this cold, dead place. Then he looks away, his face hardening as he picks up his trowel. Older Mason has already scooped a dollop of wet, grey mortar onto a board. He slaps it onto the stone floor with a wet, sucking sound. He picks up the first brick. The real work is about to begin. The prayers are over. The stones are about to speak. The older Mason works with a practiced, methodical rhythm. He doesn't waste a single movement. Scrape, slap, set. He scrapes the trowel into the bucket of mortar, a gritty, wet sound. He slaps the mortar onto the base of the alcove's opening. He sets the first brick firmly into the grey sludge. Thump. It's a small, dull sound, but it reverberates through your entire body. He doesn't start in the middle. He starts at the side, building the wall up in careful, interlocking layers. The first course of bricks goes down quickly. A line of reddish-brown cutting across the damp grey of the floor. It's a foundation. They border between your world and theirs. For now, it's just a low curb, something you could easily step over. But you know you can't. The two nuns stand guard, their arms crossed, their presence an invisible barrier more solid than any stone. The younger Mason starts to work now, mirroring the older one on the other side. They work in tandem, a silent, efficient team. Scrape, slap, set. Scrape, slap, set. The sound becomes a hypnotic, terrifying rhythm. The smell of the wet mortar fills the small cellar, a chalky, earthy scent that coats the back of your throat. It is the smell of your own burial. With each brick, your world shrinks. The opening in front of you, your last connection to the cellar, to the world, begins to diminish. It's a slow, deliberate eclipse. At first, you can still see the holes in the barrels against the far wall, the stone steps leading up into darkness, the impassive figures of the nuns. But as the second and then the third course of bricks are laid, your view is compressed. It's like looking through a shrinking window. The floor of the cellar disappears first, then the lower half of the nun's habits. You focus on the mason's hands. The older man's hands are gnarled and calloused, moving with an economy of motion that speaks of a lifetime of this work. Has he done this before? The thought sends a fresh wave of horror through you. Is this a skill he has had to use in the past? The younger man's hands are less sure. He fumbles a brick once, and the older Mason gives him a sharp, irritated glance. The younger man's face is pale in the lantern light, a sheen of sweat on his brow. He is not enjoying his work. He keeps his eyes fixed on the wall he is building, refusing to look at you, the living creature he is slowly, methodically entombing. This is the part that defies imagination, the slow creeping horror of it. It's not a quick end. It's a process. You are being forced to watch, minute by minute, as your connection to the living is severed. It's a form of psychological torture that is almost perfectly designed. A fascinating, if grim, piece of trivia is that the concept of immurement as a punishment exists in the folklore of many cultures, not just European ones. It speaks to a deep, primal human fear, the fear of being buried alive, of being trapped helpless in the dark. The stories persist because they tap into something fundamentally terrifying in our collective psyche. Now the wall is at waist height. Your view is dramatically curtailed. You can see the top half of the nuns, the lantern, the masons' faces as they work. You try to catch the younger mason's eye again, to find that spark of humanity. But he is a wall himself now, his expression closed off, his focus entirely on the bricks and mortar. He is coping by pretending you are not there. He is just building a wall. He has to tell himself that. The air inside your niche is already changing. It feels thicker, warmer, heavy with the moisture of your own breath. You can feel the cold stone at your back and, now the faint, radiating dampness of the new wall in front of you. You are being enclosed in a cocoon of stone. The sounds from the cellar are becoming muffled, dampened by the rising barrier. The scrape of the trowel, the soft thud of the bricks, they sound farther away now, even though they are only feet from your face. The world is being muted, slowly brick by brick. They are turning down the volume of your life. The wall is now shoulder high. The opening is no longer a window, it's a slit, a narrow letterbox of light and air. The faces of the masons are gone, hidden behind their own creation. All you can see are their hands as they reach up to place the next course of bricks. The world has been reduced to a collection of disembodied parts: the top of the lantern, the wind-plaid heads of the two nuns, the sliver of the stone archway at the top of the stairs, and then you see them, your sisters, not the two grim jailers who have been standing guard, but others. 3, maybe 4 of them are huddled at the top of the cellar stairs, peering down into the gloom. Their faces are pale ovals of fear and morbid curiosity in the darkness. They are not supposed to be here. This is supposed to be a secret. But as you learned before, there are no real secrets in a convent. They have come to watch. You can't make out their individual expressions clearly, but you don't need to. You know them. You see the faint outline of Sister Elspeth, the gossip, her mouth probably agape with a mixture of horror and righteous vindication. You see someone who might be young Sister Marie, who you helped learn to read in the scriptorium. Is that pity in her posture? Is she clutching the railing for support, or is she just as mesmerized by the spectacle as the others? Their presence changes everything. This is no longer a private, clinical execution. It is a show. A cautionary tale being performed for a select audience. The abbess knew they would come. She probably counted on it. This is the ultimate lesson, more powerful than any sermon. This is what happens. This is the price of sin. You are no longer just a fallen woman, you are a teaching tool. Your terror is their lesson. Historians often debate the social dynamics of these monastic communities. They were complex, often fractious societies, filled with the same jealousies, friendships, and power struggles as any small town. An event like this would have sent shockwaves through the community. It would have been a source of terror, but also for some a source of power. Those who knew who were in on the secret held a certain status. Those who watched from the shadows were being initiated into the convent's deepest, darkest piece of lore. It bound them to the institution with fear. Through the narrowing gap you look at their faces, these women you once called sister. Do they feel any solidarity, any compassion for you? Another woman trapped in this brutal system has their piety, their fear, their own self-preservation, burned all that away. You see one of them make the sign of the cross, a quick furtive gesture. Is it a prayer for your soul, or a prayer to ward off your fate from befalling them? It's impossible to tell. Their faces are a gallery of complicated, unreadable emotions. They are the last faces you will ever see. The masons continue their work, seemingly oblivious to the audience above. Scrape, slap, set. The rhythm is relentless. The gap is shrinking. Now it's only as wide as a single brick. You can no longer see all the faces on the stairs, just a sliver of the scene. IW impel. A dark patch of stone. The flickering edge of the lantern's flame. You think of Thomas. Is he whistling right now? Somewhere far away, laying stones for a great cathedral that will reach toward the sky. He is building something that will let in the light. And here these men are building something to block it out forever. The contrast is so cruel, so absolute. It's almost poetic. The hands of the older mason appear in the gap holding a brick. He carefully butters it with mortar on 3 sides. This will be one of the last ones. He is preparing to seal the top. He pushes it into place. The sliver of the outside world is gone. replaced by the dark, rough texture of brick. There is only one small hole left now, near the top. One last space for a single brick. One last peephole to the world of the living. The final opening is small, no bigger than your fist. It is your last connection to everything. Through it, you can see a distorted sliver of the scene outside, like looking through a pinhole. A patch of the younger mason's tunic, the glint of the lantern on a wet stone, a meaningless fragment of the world. All the air in your small chamber seems to be rushing towards this single point, a desperate, silent plea. You hear the scrape of the trowel well one last time. It's a final gritty sound. Then, a dark shape blocks your tiny window. It is the last brick. It is held in the mason's hand, dark and solid and absolute. For a moment it just hovers there, and in that moment, time seems to stop. You hold your breath, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. This is it. The end of light. The end of light. The end of air. The brick slides into place with a soft, grinding sound of stone or mortar. Shekai, and then darkness. A pure, total, and profound darkness. It is a physical thing, a heavy blanket that smothers you, pressing against your eyeballs. You blink once, twice, but it makes no difference. There is no distinction between your eyes being open or closed. The blackness is absolute. It is the darkness of the deepest cave, the darkness of the bottom of the sea. It is the darkness of the grave. For a few seconds, the only sound is the frantic pounding in your own ears. Then, you hear the faint, scraping noises from the other side of the wall. The masons are finishing their work. It's the sound of the trowel while smoothing the mortar over the final joints, a sound you can feel as much as hear, a faint vibration through the stone at your back. Scrape, tap, tap, tap. They are sealing the cracks. They are putting the final touches on your tomb. The sounds are muffled, distant. The wall is already doing its work, isolating you, cutting you away. You hear the faint shuffling of feet, the low murmur of voices, the nuns, the masons, their work completed. You hear the heavy clang of a tool being dropped on the stone floor. Then, the sound of footsteps receding, growing fainter and fainter as they ascend the cellar stairs. A heavy wooden door creaks, then thuds shut, and then silence. Not the holy, contemplative great silence of the convent, which was always filled with the small sounds of life breathing, coughing, the whisper of wool on stone. A dead silence. A dead silence. A dead silence. It is absolute and total. There is nothing. No echo, no draft. No draft. No skittering insect. The world has been turned off. You are utterly, completely, and finally alone. You stand there in the blackness, your mind reeling, trying to process the enormity of what has just happened. You have been sealed. The word is a lead weight in your thoughts. You are now a part of the architecture, a secret hidden within the foundations. You raise a hand, your movements slow and clumsy in the disorienting dark, and touch the wall in front of you. It's cool and slightly damp. You can feel the rough texture of the bricks and the still soft mortar in the joints. You could scratch your name in it, you think, with a strange, hysterical clarity, a final, futile gesture. This moment, the sealing of the final stone, is the stuff of Gothic horror legend. It's the image that has been immortalized in literature, most famously by Edgar Allan Poe in The Cask of Amontillado. But Poe's story is one of drunken revenge. Yours is one of cold, sober, pious justice. Historians still question whether this was a real practice, or work of skeletons found in situ standing upright in niches is a strong argument for it being a myth. But the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. A secret, well kept, remains a secret. And right now, in the suffocating blackness, the academic debate feels horrificously irrelevant. The seal is complete. The darkness is total. The silence is absolute. In the absolute darkness and silence, your own body becomes the entire universe. And it is deafeningly loud. You have never been truly aware of the symphony of noise that is your own existence until now, when there is nothing else to hear. Your heartbeat is the first thing you notice. It's not a gentle thump-thump, it's a frantic, booming drum against your ribs, a wild rhythm of terror that echoes in the tiny space, seeming to come from the very stones around you. Bom bom. It's so loud you wonder if someone on the other side of the wall could hear it. But there is no one on the other side. Then you become aware of your breathing. It's a ragged, desperate sound, a loud, wet gasp for air that isn't coming fast enough. The air in the niche is already thick and heavy, tasting of stone dust, damp mortar and your own fear. Each inhalation is a conscious effort, each exhalation a loud, shuddering release. You try to slow it down, to take control, remembering the breathing exercises the nuns taught for meditative prayer. But the panic is a physical thing, a clawing beast in your chest, and your lungs won't obey. Beneath the drumming of your heart and the rasp of your breath, there is another sound, a low, continuous, high-pitched hum. You strain to identify it. Is it coming from outside? Is it a sound from the world above, filtering through the stone? You press your ear against the cold, damp wall of your tomb, listening. But the sound doesn't change. It's not outside. It's inside. It's the sound of silence itself, the hum of your own auditory nerves firing in the absence of any external stimulus. It's a phenomenon known to those who experience sensory deprivation, a kind of ringing in the ears that doctors call tinnitus, but which feels, in this moment, like the sound of your own sanity fraying at the edges. You run your hands over your own body, a desperate act of self-reassurance. You feel the coarse wool of your habit, the rope belt at your waist, the curve of your own belly. It's a way of confirming that you are still here, that you are real, that you haven't dissolved into the blackness. The physical sensation is the only anchor you have in this sea of nothingness. Your own body is your last landmark. This experience, the sudden and total removal of all external stimuli, is something modern science has studied extensively in sensory deprivation tanks. People pay for short sessions of this, seeking relaxation or spiritual insight, but they can get out. You do not. You are in the most extreme version of this experiment, and there is no one on the other side of the glass to pull you out. Historians and psychologists can only speculate on the effects of such a prolonged, terrifying ordeal. The mind, starved of input, would inevitably begin to create its own. Hallucinations would not be a matter of if, but when. You try to speak, to break the crushing silence. You whisper your own name. The sound is shockingly loud and wrong. It doesn't travel. It just hangs in the thick air in front of your face, flat and dead, absorbed by the stone and wall. There is no echo, no resonance. It's like shouting into a pillow. The lack of acoustic feedback is profoundly disorienting. It feels like you haven't spoken at all. You scream, a raw, primal scream of pure terror, a sound torn from the deepest part of your being. But the screamed eyes in the tiny space are muffled, choked thing. The sound waves have nowhere to go. They hit the wall a few inches in front of your face and just stop. It's the most terrifying thing yet. Even your own scream, your ultimate expression of self, is swallowed by the silence. It cannot escape. You are trapped, and even your voice is a prisoner, louder than ever, a vast, empty presence. And in that roaring silence, you are truly, horrificously alone. The panic eventually subsides, not because the situation is any less terrifying, but because your body simply cannot sustain that level of adrenaline. It burns out, leaving you in a state of exhausted, trembling dread. You lean your head against the cold, rough stone at your back, your breath coming in slow, shuddering waves. The absolute darkness remains a constant oppressive weight. It is in this first moment of weary calm that you feel it again. A soft, internal flutter, a gentle roll. The quickening. The life inside you, which had been still and quiet during the terror of the entombment, is moving again. A tiny, insistent reminder that you are not, in fact, alone in this grave. The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow, a fresh wave of despair so profound it eclipses the initial terror. This isn't just your tomb. It's a tomb for two. You are not just a prisoner, you are a living, breathing coffin for your unborn child. The life that you tried in your own clumsy way to protect, the life that you refused to name the father of, you have laid it here. You press your hands against your belly, a gesture that is both protective and mournful. You are the provider of this child's first and only home, and it is a stone niche in a cellar wall. You are its source of life and its source of death. The air you are slowly using up is its air. The water in the pitcher at your feet is its water. The slow process of your own starvation will be its starvation. It's a grotesque parody of motherhood. This specific detail, the pregnancy, is what makes this legend so particularly horrific. It elevates the cruelty beyond simple punishment into something monstrous. It's a detail often highlighted in the more sensationalist accounts of immurement. There's a grim piece of folklore, a sort of ghost story variant, that claims the spirits of these immured nuns and their babies are the ones that haunt old convents and monasteries, their faint cries heard in the walls on still nights. It's almost certainly just a story, but it speaks to the deep emotional resonance of this specific horror, the death of a mother and her unborn child together. You sink down, sliding along the rough stone wall until you are sitting on the cold, damp earth of the floor. You draw your knees up to your chest, trying to make yourself as small as possible, an instinctive, futile gesture of hiding. The space is so narrow your knees are pressed against the new brick wall. You can feel the faint, residual heat of the chemical reaction from the drying mortar, a strange and unwelcome warmth in the cold dampness of the cellar. What would it have been, a boy or a girl? Would he have had Thomas' startling blue eyes? Would she have had your stubbornness? You allow yourself to imagine it. For just a moment, a life outside these walls, a small, grubby hand in yours. The sound of a child's laughter. The images are so vivid, so painful, they are like shards of glass in your mind. It is a life that is now as impossible as the sun. Historians who study women's lives in the Middle Ages often talk about the immense social and religious importance placed on childbearing within marriage, and the equally immense shame placed upon it outside of wedlock. Your situation is the most extreme expression of that paradox. The biological process that was celebrated as a gift from God in one context was, in yours, the undeniable proof of a damnable sin. Your body was performing its most natural function, and for that, it was condemned. You sit there in the crushing dark, one hand resting on the slight swell of your belly, and you weep, not the loud, frantic sobs of before, but slow, silent tears that track down your cheeks and drip onto your coarse habit. You are mourning not just for yourself, but for the ghost you carry inside you, for the life that will never be lived, for the eyes that will never see the light, for the breath that will never be drawn. This tiny, cramped, pitch-black space is a womb, and it is a grave. The two have become one. Time ceases to be a measurable thing. There is no sun, no moon, no bells. There is only the darkness and the slow, internal rhythm of your own body. How long have you been here? Data you have no way of knowing. Your existence has been reduced to a series of primal, animal states, breathing, waiting, and now, a new and powerful tormentor has arrived. It starts as a hollow ache in your stomach, a familiar pang you felt before on fast days. But it doesn't go away, it grows. It sharpens. It becomes an annoying, cramping presence that twists your insides. The small loaf of coarse, dry bread they left you is at your feet. You could eat it now. All of it. Devour it in a few frantic, desperate bites. But a sliver of rational thought, a survival instinct you didn't know you possessed, holds you back. You have to make it last. You fumble for the loaf in the darkness, your fingers brushing against the rough clay of the water pitcher. Your hands close around the bread. It feels dense and heavy. You break off a tiny piece, no bigger than your thumb, and put it in your mouth. It's stale and tastes of little more than dry flour, but as you chew it slowly, turning it to a paste, it feels like the most delicious thing you have ever eaten. You make it last, savoring every particle. But the tiny portion does nothing to quiet the beast of hunger. It only awakens it, makes it angrier. Your entire consciousness begins to narrow, to focus on this one single, overwhelming sensation. The theological argument of the abbess, the memory of Thomas, the faces of your sisters, they all begin to fade into the background. Your world, already physically confined to this niche, is now mentally confined to the geography of your own aching, and it is staging a coup in your mind. This intense, prolonged hunger would trigger profound physiological changes. Historians studying accounts of feminine sieges know that starvation doesn't just weaken the body, it alters the mind. It can cause irritability, obsession, and eventually a profound apathy. It is a slow, methodical dismantling of the self. Your body, in a desperate attempt to survive, would begin to consume itself. First fat reserves, then muscle tissue. You are, quite literally, beginning to disappear. You think about food with an intensity that is almost religious. You conjure up images of meals from your past, not feasts, but simple things. A bowl of warm pea soup on a winter's day. A ripe apple, its juice dripping down your chin. The heel of a fresh loaf, slathered with butter. The memories are so vivid they are tortuous. You can almost smell them, taste them. Your mouth fills with saliva, and your stomach clenches with a fresh wave of painful cramps. This obsession with food is a well-documented phenomenon among those suffering from starvation. There's a bizarre piece of trivia from a more modern context during the brutal Minnesota starvation experiment in the 1940s, where volunteers underwent semi-starvation to study its effects. The men became obsessed with food. They would read cookbooks for hours, collect recipes, and talk of little else, even as their bodies wasted away. It's the mind's desperate attempt to compensate for what the body lacks. You ration the bread with an iron will. One tiny piece chewed to nothing. Then a sip of water from the pitcher. The water is cool and clean, but you know it is a finite resource, perhaps even more precious than the bread. You allow yourself only the smallest sips, just enough to wet your dry throat and swallow the dry crumbs. Each swallow is a conscious, deliberate act of survival. The hunger is a living thing in the darkness with you. It is a demon, whispering of feasts and banquets, tormenting you with the ghosts of flavors. It gnaws at your inside. And it gnaws at your sanity. You curl into a ball on the floor, pressing your arms against your empty, aching belly, as if you could physically squeeze the hunger out. But it's no use. The demon is inside you, and it is slowly, patiently, devouring you from within. The hunger is a fire in your belly, but a new torment soon joins it, one that is even more elemental, more absolute. Thirst. The water in the clay pitcher, once a promise of a few more days of life, is now terrifyingly low. You can tell by the weight of it when you lift it, by the sloshing sound that is now higher-pitched, emptier. Each sip is a desperate calculation. How much can you afford? How long do you have to make it last? But make what lasts. You are not waiting for a rescue. You are just managing the pace of your own demise. Your mouth is dry, your tongue is thick, for an object that seems to stick to the roof of your mouth. Your throat is a desert, raw and scratchy. Swallowing the dry crumbs of your rationed bread becomes an agonizing effort. The thirst is a different kind of tyrant than the hunger. The hunger is an annoying beast, but the thirst is a fever, a madness that seeps into your brain. It whispers to you, not of food, but of water, of rain, of rivers, of a cool, clear well. You lick your own lips, trying to find a trace of moisture, but they are cracked and dry. In the pitch-black darkness-driven need, you do something you would have thought impossible. You press your mouth against the cold, damp stone of the foundation wall behind you. You lick the stone. The surface is rough against your tongue, tasting of earth, of minerals, of centuries of cold dampness. There is a faint, almost imperceptible film of moisture on it, the condensation of this subterranean space. It does nothing to quench your thirst, but it is wet. It is a sensation your body craves with an intensity that is wiping out everything else. You lick the wall again, a frantic, animalistic act. You are trying to drink a stone. This detail, licking moisture from walls, is a recurring one in survival stories from caves or collapsed mines. It's a testament to the absolute power of thirst. It overrides dignity, reason, everything. It reduces a person to their most basic, reptilian instincts. There's a strange piece of trivia from the world of geology. Some deep caves have what are called weeping walls, where water slowly seeps through the porous rock. Finding such a wall can mean the difference between life and death for a trapped caver. But your wall is not weeping. It is just cold, hard, and unforgiving. Your obsession shifts from the pitcher of water to the walls themselves. You run your hands over them in the darkness, searching for a spot that feels damper than the others. You press your cheek against the new brick wall in front of you, feeling the texture of the mortar. Is it still damp? Could there be a drop of water left in the mix? You lick the mortar joint. It's gritty and tastes of lime and sand, a foul, chemical taste that makes you gag. But for a fleeting moment, it was wet. The thirst is beginning to affect your mind. Your thoughts become sluggish, syrupy. It's hard to hold on to a single idea for long. The world, already shrunk to the size of this niche, is now shrinking further to the size of a single, desperate thought. Water. Your mind conjures mirages. You can hear it, the faint sound of dripping. Plink, plink, plink. Do you hold your breath, straining to listen, your heart pounding? Is it real? Is water seeping in some way? You press your ear to the wall, listening, hoping, but the sound fades. It was never there. It was a ghost of a sound, a phantom created by your own desperate brain. You take another sip from the pitcher, the smallest you can manage. The cool liquid is a momentary paradise, a shock of life that clarifies your thoughts for a few seconds. But it also reminds you of how much you need, and how little you have. The brief moment of relief only makes the returning thirst more agonizing. You set the pitcher down with trembling hands, terrified of spilling a single precious drop. You are now a guardian of your own dwindling life force, a miser counting out your last few coins of existence in an endless, thirsty darkness. Your world is now a cycle of primal urges, the gnawing of hunger, the fever of thirst, the heavy cloak of darkness, and sleep. Sleep is the only escape, but it is a treacherous one. You drift in and out of a shallow, restless state that isn't truly wakeful. It's a grey, disorienting fog. Time, which had already lost its external markers, now dissolves completely. Has it been 3 days, a week? Is it day or night outside your stone prison? The question is meaningless. The sun could be shining, the bells could be tolling for vespers, or a storm could be raging, the sky black with rain. It makes no difference to you. Your universe is timeless. There is only the now of your suffering. You try to impose some kind of order, a memory of the life you once knew. You try to pray at the times you know the bells would be ringing. You murmur the words of the matin service, then Lauds, then Prime. But the words are hollow, the ritual a ghost. Without the bell, without the chorus of other voices, without the rising and kneeling, it's just you, whispering into the dark. Soon you lose track. Did you already pray for sex? Is it time for none? The disciplined, clockwork structure that once governed your every moment has collapsed into a blurry, unending stretch of darkness. Historians and sociologists who study prisoners in solitary confinement note this as a common and deliberate effect of the punishment. The removal of time-keeping devices and natural light is designed to disorient and break a person's spirit. It erodes the ability to think logically, to plan, to hope. It detaches you from the rhythm of the human world, making you feel if you no longer belong to it. Your experience is an extreme, medieval version of this same psychological assault. You sleep and you dream. The dreams are vivid and cruel. You dream you are in the convent's kitchen garden, the sun warm on your face. You are kneeling in the dirt, and you pull a carrot from the earth. It's bright orange and perfect. You can smell the rich soil clinging to it. You raise it to your mouth, about to take a bite, and you wake up. To the darkness, to the hunger. The phantom taste of the carrot is so real it makes you weep with frustration. You dream of Thomas. He is standing on the other side of the wall, and he is talking to you. You can hear his voice, muffled but clear. He is telling you to be patient, that he is coming for you. He is chipping away at the stones. You can hear the tink, tink of his chisel. You press your ear to the wall, listening, your heart soaring with a desperate hope, and you wake up to the silence. To the cold stone, the hope evaporates, leaving a bitter residue of despair. The line between these dreams and reality begins to blur. Are you awake now, or is this just another layer of the nightmare you lose the ability to distinguish? The darkness is the same, asleep or awake. The hunger is the same. Your life is a seamless fabric of suffering, with no clear distinction between the imagined and the real. There's a strange but relevant piece of trivia about people lost in caves for long periods. They often report a complete breakdown of their circadian rhythm, The internal body clock. They sleep in strange, short bursts. Their perception of time becomes hopelessly warped, and they can lose days, even weeks. They are living in a world without a sun, just like you. You try to keep track of the days by making a scratch on the soft mortar with your fingernail each time you think a full day-night cycle has passed. But you fall asleep in the middle of a day. You wake up disoriented. Was that a short nap or a long slumber? Is it a new day? You make a scratch anyway. Soon you have a small collection of marks. 5, 6, 7. But you know the count is meaningless. It's a fiction you've created to fight off the insanity of timelessness. It is the lost ballant, imaginary toll that you ring only for yourself in a world that has no sun. Your brain, starved of all external stimulation, begins to create its own. The silence is no longer empty, it is filled with sounds that aren't there. The phantom dripping of water you heard before now returns with friends. You hear the faint, rustling sound of mice, even though you know no mouse could get in here. You hear the distant, ghostly echo of the nuns chanting in the chapel. The Kyrie eleison, it's so clear, so beautiful you find yourself humming along, your cracked lips barely forming the notes. And then it fades, leaving the roaring silence in its place. These are auditory hallucinations, a common side effect of sensory deprivation and profound isolation. Your mind is trying to fill the void, to make sense of the utter lack of input by creating its own data. It's a defense mechanism, a way for the brain to keep working, but it feels like you are losing your grip on reality. The voices are the worst. At first, they are just whispers, indistinct murmurs at the edge of your hearing, like the ghosts of the gossip you used to hear in the cloister. But they grow clearer. You hear the abbess's cold, sharp voice, accusing you. Adulteress, betrayer. You press your hands over your ears, but it doesn't help, because the voice isn't coming from the outside. Then you hear Thomas' voice, full of warmth and concern. I'm here. Don't be afraid. A wave of comfort washes over you, so powerful and so real that you answer him. Thomas, you croak, your voice a dry rasp. Where are you? The only reply is the humming of the silence. The most vivid and most painful hallucination is the sound of a baby crying. It's a faint, mewling sound at first, but it grows into a full-throated, desperate wail. It is the cry of a newborn, hungry and afraid. It is the sound of your child. You fumble in the darkness, your hands patting the empty air, the cold floor. I'm here. You whisper, hush now, I'm here. The crying seems to come from the very walls around you, an omnipresent sound of distress that you, its mother, are powerless to soothe. You curl into a ball, weeping, begging the phantom child to be quiet, your sanity fraying with every imagined wail. This is a realm that historians can only touch upon through the writings of mystics and anchorites, those who willingly chose a life of extreme solitary confinement for religious reasons. Many of them, like Julian of Norwich, famously described their visions and showings, but their experiences were framed by faith and purpose. Yours are framed by terror and despair. The academic question is a fascinating one. Where is the line between a divine vision and the starvation-induced hallucination? Are they neurologically the same phenomenon, interpreted differently based on context? The darkness, too, begins to play tricks on you. It is no longer a uniform, absolute black. You start to see things in it, faint, shimmering patterns of light, like phosphorescence, swirling shapes and colors that dance and morph in front of your open eyes. These are phosphenes, the brain's visual response to a lack of light, the same phenomenon you see when you rub your eyes too hard. But to you, they are terrifying visions. Faces emerge from the swirling patterns, gaunt, skeletal faces with hollow eyes that stare at you from the darkness. They are the faces of the damned, your new companions in this stone hell. You are no longer sure what is real. Is the gnawing hunger real? Is the picture of water real? Or are they just memories? Ideas? You are clinging to a dream. You talk to the voices now. You argue with the abbess. You whisper reassurances to Thomas. You try to soothe a crying baby. Your tiny cell, once empty, is now crowded with ghosts, phantoms born from the slow decay of your own mind. The tomb has become a skull, and all the noise of the world is now trapped inside it with you, echoing endlessly. There had been a rhythm to your shared existence in the dark, your own slow decline, and the faint, fluttering movements of the life inside you. The tiny kicks and rolls were a secret conversation, a constant, tangible proof that you were not entirely alone. It was a source of both profound grief and a strange, fierce comfort. But now, that rhythm is changing. The movements are becoming weaker, less frequent. The energetic flutters have been replaced by slow, languid shifts that feel less like life and more like a gentle, fading echo. You lie still for hours on the cold earth floor, your hands spread across your belly, waiting. Waiting. Sometimes, after a long still silence, you feel a faint, weak nudge, and a wave of relief so powerful it makes you dizzy. Still there, but the intervals of silence are getting longer. The movements, when they come, are sluggish, tired. Your body, in its desperate fight for survival, is failing, and it is failing the life that depends entirely upon it. The meager rations of bread and water are not enough for one, let alone water. The child is starving with you. The thought is a cold, sharp blade twisting in your gut, a pain far worse than the hunger itself. You make a decision. You take the last, small piece of your bread, a piece you had been saving. You put it in your mouth, but you don't eat it. You just let it soften, holding the promise of nourishment for as long as you can, a silent, desperate offering. You drink the last of the water, not for yourself, but for the child. It is a mother's last, futile act of sacrifice, an offering to a life that is being extinguished before it can even begin. Then comes the day or the period of darkness that you call a day when the movements stop altogether. You wait. You lie perfectly still, straining every nerve, focusing your entire being on the space within you. You press gently on your belly, trying to coax a response. Nothing. The silence from within is as absolute as the silence from without. The stillness is terrifying. Before, there were 2 heartbeats in this tomb. Now there is only one. The second one has fallen silent. The faint, fluttering presence that was your constant companion in this horror has vanished. You are, for the first time since this ordeal began, truly, completely alone. The finality of it is a new and deeper kind of despair. The grief is a physical weight, crushing the air from your lungs. There are no more tears to cry. You are dehydrated, a husk. All you can do is let out a low, guttural moan, a sound of pure animal bereavement. The phantoms in your head fall silent. The voices of the abbess and Thomas, the crying of the ghost baby, they all disappear, burned away by the raw, overwhelming reality of this new loss. This grim biological reality is often glossed over in the romanticized, gothic versions of the legend. But it is the core of the tragedy. Medical historians would confirm that in a state of severe malnutrition, the mother's body would be unable to sustain a pregnancy. A miscarriage would be the inevitable, tragic outcome. It is a detail that grounds the fantastic horror of the legend in a brutal, biological truth. The crime would, in the end, erase its own evidence. You feel a sense of failure that is absolute. You fail to protect your child from the judgment of the world, and you fail to sustain its life within the prison of your own body. The tiny, flickering flame you carried has been snuffed out. The secret purpose that fueled your will to survive, even for a few more days, is gone. There is no one left to fight for but yourself, and you no longer have the strength or the will. You lie on the cold floor of your tomb, your hand resting on the now still curve of your belly. It is no longer a cradle. It is a sarcophagus. The first death in this tomb was not your own. The second silence has fallen. With the second silence, something inside you breaks. The desperate, animalistic will to survive, the part of you that meticulously rationed bread and licked stones for moisture, simply gives up. What is the point? The future has been cancelled. There is no more waiting for a miracle, no more fighting for a life that has already been extinguished. There is only the slow, final unwinding of your own existence. The hunger and thirst are still there, a constant, dull background ache. But they no longer feel like urgent torments. They are just conditions. The state of things. Like the darkness. Like the darkness. Like the stone. You stop making the journey to your feet to feel for the empty pitcher or the last crumbs of bread. You simply lie on the floor, your body curled in on itself. The distinction between sleeping and waking, already blurred, now vanishes entirely. You exist in a perpetual twilight, a grey, featureless landscape of fading consciousness. Your body is surrendering. Your breathing, once loud and ragged with panic, is now shallow and slow. Each breath is a whisper, a tiny puff of air in the thick, stale darkness. Your heartbeat, once a frantic drum, is a slow, tired, faltering rhythm. Thump, 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 the engine is running out of fuel. The machine is shutting down. Your mind in these final hours or days begins to drift. You are no longer tormented by vivid hallucinations. The ghosts have fled. Instead, your thoughts are like autumn leaves, detaching from the branch and drifting slowly, randomly, to the ground. You think of your mother's face, not with the sharp pain of grief, but with a kind of gentle, distant fondness. You remember the pattern of window pane in your childhood home. You remember the sound of a specific hymn, the one the nuns sang on Easter morning. These are not stories or coherent memories, just fragments, sensations, a flash of color, a phantom scent, the feeling of sunlight. That is the one that returns most often. You find yourself thinking about the sun with a profound, peaceful longing. You remember how it felt on your eyelids, a warm red glow even when they were closed. You remember how it made the dust motes dance in the air of the scriptorium. You remember the heat of a stone bench in the cloister garden after a long, cold service in the chapel. The sun becomes your final obsession, but it is a gentle one, a peaceful one. It is not a craving, like the hunger or the thirst, but a quiet meditation. The sun is everything this place is not: warmth, light, life. It is the world. There's a concept in palliative care called the final rally or terminal lucidity, where a person who has been non-responsive or confused for days will suddenly become clear-headed and calm shortly before death. It's a mysterious phenomenon that historians and medical professionals still debate. Is it a final surge of adrenaline, a release of endorphins in the brain, whatever the cause? It is often a moment of peaceful clarity before the end. Perhaps this is what you are experiencing now, gentle letting go. You are no longer afraid. The terror has been burned out of you, leaving only a vast, quiet emptiness. You have experienced the worst thing imaginable, and you have survived it, until now. There is nothing left for them to take from you. You have a strange sense of finality, even of peace. You are floating in a dark, quiet sea, and the shore is finally approaching. Your last coherent thought is not of God or judgment or sin. It is not of Thomas or the child you lost. It is simply of the sun. You imagine stepping out of this cellar, out of the convent, into a bright, open field. You imagine turning your face up to the sky and feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, just one last time. It's a simple, beautiful thought. And as you hold it in your mind, the slow, tired rhythm of your heart falters. And then, with a final, gentle sigh, it stops. The darkness outside and the darkness inside become one. On the other side of the wall, the world did not stop. The day after you were sealed away, the matins bell rang at the same ungodly hour. The nuns shuffled to the chapel, their voices rising in the same ancient chants. In the refectory, they ate the same bland pottage in the same contemplative silence. In the scriptorium, another sister took your place, scraping the old words from a sheet of parchment. Your absence was a hole, but one that the convent's rigid, powerful routine immediately filled. Such as it was, went on. Your name was never spoken again. You were excised, erased. To the new novices who arrived in the years that followed, it was as if you had never existed. The secret of what lay in the cellar wall was kept by a shrinking circle of senior nuns. The abbess, the priest, the two masons, they carried the knowledge with them, a silent, shared burden. For them, the wall in the cellar was not just a wall. It was a monument to their justice, a symbol of their power, a constant, grim reminder of the price of transgression. The nuns who had watched from the top of the stairs, what did they think when they passed that section of the cellar on their way to fetch potatoes or check the ale barrels? Did they feel a chill? Did they whisper a hasty prayer? Or did they, over time, simply forget the human mind has a powerful capacity to normalize the horrific, to file it away under things we don't talk about. The walls simply became part of the scenery. This is a key point for historians who are skeptical of the Immurement legend. How could such a secret be kept? The answer may lie in the powerful combination of institutional authority, religious conviction, and collective denial. The church was an expert at keeping secrets, and the nuns themselves, bound by vows of obedience and living in a state of constant, low-grade fear, would have had every incentive to remain silent. To speak of it would be to question the abbess's authority, to question the very foundations of their world. Silence was survival. Over the years, the convent changed. The old abbess died and was replaced by a new one. The priest grew frayed and was succeeded by a younger man. The nuns who knew the secret grew old and passed away, one by one taking the truth with them to their own, more conventional graves. Eventually, there was no one left who knew what or who was sealed inside the foundation. The secret was kept so well that it was lost even to the keepers. Decades pass. The cellar wall remains, cold and silent. A layer of dust and cobwebs grows over the newer brickwork, blurring the lines between it and the older stone until it is unwatchable. The story of the fallen nun, if it is remembered at all, transforms. It morphs from a specific, horrific event into a vague, cautionary tale told to frighten disobedient novices. A ghost story. Behave, or the ghost of the sinful nun who is buried in the walls will get you. The legend becomes a myth. This process of myth-making is fascinating. It's how real historical traumas are often processed and passed down through generations. The sharp, painful edges of the truth are worn smooth over time, replaced by a more palatable, more mysterious narrative. A strange piece of trivia is that many old buildings, from castles to monasteries, have stories of being haunted by figures walled up within them. These stories are often dismissed as folklore, but historians sometimes wonder if they are the faint, distorted echoes of real, forgotten tragedies. The world outside the convent walls changed too. Plagues came and went. Kings rose and fell. The very language people spoke began to shift, and inside the cellar, your tomb remained undisturbed, a time capsule of a single, horrific act of justice. The wall stood, silent and patient, guarding its secret. The convent's daily life continued, a river of prayer and work flowing on, completely unaware of the skeleton that formed part of its very foundation. You were gone, but you were still there. Centuries pass. The world that condemned you is long gone. The convent itself has fallen into ruin. The dissolution of the monasteries, a great wave of political and religious upheaval, saw the nuns evicted, the holy relics seized, and the land sold off to a wealthy merchant. The chapel roof collapsed. Ivy grew over the stone walls, its tendrils probing into the cracks, slowly pulling the work of the masons apart. The scriptorium, where you once scraped parchment, is now open to the sky. Its floor a carpet of moss. The entire place is a skeleton of what it once was. The land changes hands again and again. It becomes a farm or quarry, then is abandoned altogether. The ruins are a place for local children to play, a romantic, melancholy spot for lovers' trysts. The stories of the place persist, but they are faded and confused tales of buried treasure, of phantom monks, of a ghostly white lady who weeps in the moonlight. Your story is still there, but it has become just one of many threads in a tapestry of local folklore. Then one day in a more modern era, perhaps the 19th century, a time of great fascination with Gothic history and archaeology, or even the 20th, a new owner decides to do something with the land. He wants to build a new house, or perhaps a local historical society has raised funds to stabilize the ruins and turn them into a tourist site. Architects and builders arrive. They survey the crumbling walls, the collapsed cellars. Plans are drawn up. Work begins. They are clearing the debris from the old cellar, a space that has been filled with rubble and earth for generations. Workmen with shovels and pickaxes are breaking up the packed dirt. They come to the foundation wall, the one in the corner. One of the foremen notices something odd. He runs his hand over the stone. "Look at this," he says, pointing. "This section here. It's not the original stonework. It's brick. They patched your curiosity piqued. He orders the men to be careful. They work around the bricked-up section. What was it? A sealed-up doorway, a blocked-off passage to a hidden vault. The idea of finding a secret chamber is exciting. The foreman takes a crowbar and a sledgehammer and begins to pry at the top layer of bricks. The mortar, ancient and brittle, crumbles to dust. The first brick comes loose. He peers into the darkness, but he can't see anything. He calls for a lantern. Another worker brings one over. Its bright, steady flame a world away from the flickering tallow that lit your final moments. The foreman holds the lantern up to the hole and looks inside. He recoils, his face pale. "My God," he whispers. The workers crowd around. "What is it? What did you see?" He can't speak for a moment. He just points. One of the bolder workers takes the lantern and looks for himself. Inside the narrow, dark niche, illuminated by the lantern's glow, is a human skeleton. It is not lying down, not curled up. It is standing, or rather, held upright by the narrowness of the space, its spine pressed against the back wall. It is draped in the tattered, rotted remains of a coarse, heavy fabric a nun's habit. The skull has slumped forward onto the chest, the jaw hanging open in a silent, eternal scream. And there, nestled within the cage of the ribs and the pelvis, are the tiny, fragile, paper-thin bones of a fetus. The discovery causes a sensation. Newspapers print lurid headlines walled up, "Nun found in ancient ruins." Gruesome discovery confirms Dark Age legend. The story of the weeping white lady is suddenly given a new, horrific context. This is the source of the legend. The vague ghost story has just collided with a stark, undeniable reality. Your forgotten tomb has begun to speak. They tell a story that no one living remembers. A story of a secret punishment, of a long-forgotten crime. The archaeological find becomes a piece of evidence in a centuries-old cold case, bringing a dark myth screaming back into the world of fact. The discovery of your bones ignites a firestorm of debate. Your skeleton is no longer just the remains of a person, it is a data point, an artifact, a piece of evidence in a historical argument that has been raging for centuries. You, the forgotten nun, are suddenly at the center of a very loud, very public conversation. One group of historians seizes upon the discovery as definitive proof. "We told you so," they declare. For them, your bones confirm the darkest tales of anti-clerical propaganda from the Reformation and the Enlightenment. They see your tomb as evidence of the institutional cruelty of the medieval church, a symbol of its oppressive power over women. They point to the position of your skeleton upright in the presence of the fetal bones as a perfect match for the folkloric accounts of immurement for pregnant nuns. To them, you are the smoking gun, the concrete evidence that turns lurid legend into historical fact. The case, they argue, is closed. But another group of academics urges caution. They are the skeptics, the ones who demand more than a single sensational find. It's not that simple, they argue. They propose alternative theories trying to explain away the horror. Perhaps you were not walled up alive. Perhaps you died of some other cause, plague, childbirth complications, and were simply buried in an unconsecrated grave within the cellar, a common fate for those who died in a state of sin. The brick wall, they suggest, might have been built later, coincidentally sealing your grave. Then there's the question of motivation. The official punishment theory makes for a great story. But is it plausible? Some historians argue that a convent would be more likely to quietly send a pregnant nun away to a distant sister house to have the child in secret, or even arrange a discreet accident. A living entombment, they contend, was too risky, too cruel, and too likely to create a scandal or a haunting both bad for business and for the spiritual health of the community. They argue that your fate was likely an unofficial act, a moment of extreme, localized fanaticism led by a particularly zealous abbess, rather than a standard prescribed punishment. This is the rogue convent theory. This is the point where the discussion always ends up. The phrase historians are still debating this. Because the truth is, a single skeleton, no matter how evocative, cannot tell us what was in the mind of the abbess. It cannot tell us if the masons knew what they were doing. It cannot tell us if you were conscious when the last brick was laid. Bones can tell us about diet, disease, and age, but they cannot speak to intent, to fear, to faith, or to cruelty. And so your story remains suspended in that fascinating, frustrating space between history and myth. You are a Rorschach test for historians. Those who are inclined to believe in the darkest aspects of the past see you as an anomaly, a mystery that needs more context. Your grim fate has become a chapter in a textbook, a footnote in an academic journal, a topic for a late-night documentary. A strange and final piece of trivia sometimes. These walled-up skeletons are found with small artifacts, like a pilgrim's badge or a simple cross, suggesting a complex mixture of punishment and piety. Did they leave you with a symbol of the faith that was condemning you? Will never know for sure. The world moves on. Your bones are eventually given a proper burial, a Christian service centuries late. A small plaque might be placed in the ruins, noting the unusual medieval instrument found on the site. Tourists will read it, shiver, and take a photo. But the truth of your final days, the sound of the silence, the taste of the stone, the terror and the darkness that belongs only to you, you are the only one who knows the real story. And you are silent. But they have only raised more questions, leaving the final, awful truth buried forever in the myth that surrounds you. And now, the story is over. The historians have had their say, the tourists have gone home, and the ruins of the convent are quiet once more, settling back into the long, slow slumber of ages. The sharp edges of your tale begin to soften, to blur, like a landscape seen through a gathering fog. The echoes of the chanting, the scraping of the trowel, the frantic beating of the heart, they all fade, becoming distant, indistinct sounds, like the memory of a dream upon waking. Feel the weight of the story begin to lift, to float away from you. The cold stone of the cellar warms and dissolves. The oppressive darkness is replaced by a gentle, soft-hued twilight that holds no fear. You are drifting now, untethered from the narrative. The fear, the hunger, the sorrow, they are just words now, losing their power, their meaning dissipating into the quiet air of your room. Imagine yourself in that field from your last peaceful thought. The sun is real. Its warmth soaks into your skin, the gentle, golden light that chases away all the shadows. The air is fresh and clean, filled with the scent of wildflowers and damp earth. A soft breeze whispers through the tall grass, and it sounds not like a curse, but like a lullaby. You are no longer trapped. You are light. You are light. You are light. You are at peace. Let the rhythm of your own breathing be the only guide now. Slow, easy inhale, a long, soft exhale carrying you further and further away into the quiet, peaceful landscape of your own deepest sleep. The end of the article. Good night.